First of all, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We're really, really pleased to see how much excitement there is in terms of learning more about Conserv and the software that we have. So we're really excited to share it with you. As an introduction, my name is Melissa King. I am a preventive conservator. I trained at the University of Delaware, and I have a very special interest in data science and obviously preventive conservation. So it's a real pleasure to be working with Conserv. And Claire?
Yep, I'm Claire Winfield. I'm a paints conservator, a graduate of the University of Buffalo program, or the Buffalo State College program at State University of New York. And I've been working in museums and private practices for the last 10 or so years. And I did a several-year lighting monitoring project in St. Louis, actually. So I have a special interest in light monitoring. So we here at Melissa and I at Conserv are trained conservators, but we're here to sort of help with customer relations, essentially, getting to know our customers and helping them get the solutions they need, and also helping direct our products. So, as with people with direct background in these areas, we're a very good resource to help build the best things that people in collections care need.
Yeah. And just as a quick little background on our company, it was founded by Austin Senseman and Nathan McMinn from Alabama. And Nathan is a software and hardware engineer, and Austin is a data analyst. And so they met and decided they wanted to start a company about it together. And Nathan's parents happened to be art conservators. So they learned about this interesting thing that we do called environmental monitoring, and realized that there really had to be a better way to do environmental monitoring the way we've been doing it in our field for so many years. So we do have just like a really short little video that explains Conserv, kind of just generally what our company is about, and then we'll just jump into the software stuff.
You know that environmental monitoring is essential to preserving your collection, but it's also a big hassle. Manual data collection, software that looks like the 1990s, and customer support that's, well, unsupportive. The truth is, these old data logger companies just aren't built for today's preservation work. Meet Conserv, a modern wireless monitoring solution built specifically for collections that transforms hassle into delight. Turn on your accurate wireless Conserv sensors and they just work. No more manual data collection. Log into your Conserv software and get environment and pest insights to support your team's decision-making from anywhere. And experience the incredible customer support delivered by our team of conservators. With a Conserv subscription, you're joining a growing group of museums, libraries, and archives that expect more. Conserv is what preservation professionals want. We know because we asked. To get started, visit www.conserv.io.
All right. Oh,
you know that environment.
We'll go to the next slide.
Yeah, just
so just a quick outline of what we're going to go over today. We are going to walk you through the software. We'll explain how you can log in. We're also going to give you some information to help you find some time to speak to one of us if you are interested in learning more about our sensors and our software. And we're also excited to share that we're having a giveaway for one of our environmental monitoring starter kits that includes 2 sensors and a gateway. But we will announce the winner at the end of the call, so you do have to stick around. So hopefully we'll see you there. One thing that we hear a lot is free software. People seem a little hesitant about that. Why would we have free software? It is completely free. We are happy to have you start using it right away. A core part of our mission as a company is to provide better tools for the field. So we feel strongly about being able to provide that service of this software for you. The software allows you to upload as much data as you'd like, and you can invite as many people into the software as you'd like as well.
So so just a general sort of information. You should have gotten an email from me and then an email to invite you into the software. You don't have to be in the software for this webinar. You can log in later. We will send you a follow-up email and then a series after that with more information about the software. So if you have any problems logging in, if you have any sort of burning questions, if you want to reach out and make a meeting to talk about sensors or challenges you're having, there'll be information with my contact information in those emails. So you'll be able to reach out if you need, again, if you've got any problems or, want to learn more, please do feel free to reach out.
Great. All right, well, let's jump in then.
One more, sorry, a couple Zoom
right.
housekeeping things. So if you have questions, we're going to try to answer everyone's questions during the webinar. We'll sort of see if we'll sort of pepper them throughout or sort of hold them for the end. If you could use the Q&A box in Zoom, that'd be great. And I'll be sort of monitoring sort of chat and Q&A, and Melissa will be sort of the primary driver, sort of showing the software.
And just so you are aware, anytime you want to log into the software, you just go to our website, conserv.io, and there's a little login button here. And so that will help you log in. If you have any issues logging in, try resetting your password first. That usually helps. But here we go. So when you do log in, this is what it's going to look like. We're in our sensors tab right here, and it will be a quick snapshot. There will be like multiple squares that show what sensors you have in your account with the most recent readings that you have. I do really want to point out the hierarchy view here, which is really important. It's also probably the best way to visualize the data. I mean, what you have in terms of data imported into the software. And so the way we've set it up is that there is a building, like a space, a building, and then there's spaces within the building, and then there are sensors within the spaces. And you will notice that all of your accounts will have this in your software already. And this is a sensor that is in our office in Birmingham, Alabama, reporting data, like it just reported a minute ago, just to emphasize that. And somebody just asked if we can change the temperature. I'm trying to get distracted, but yes, we can put it in Celsius. You can set that up in your profile. I'll show you in a second. Let me move that. So it's in everybody's account. So you have some dummy data to play with. It's a few years worth of data to look at, just in case you haven't been able to upload your own data. And I'll walk you through it too when we're looking at the analysis. But you're welcome to delete it when you're done with it and you have your own data in here. So we'll just set it up for you. So we're making up a space. We're gonna do the White House. And that's the name of the building. And then what is it, 1600?
Yeah, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We tried to come up with something that was an easy address that people might recognize.
And we put the address in. You have to put the address in for your locations because we're able to pull up local weather data when we're looking at the analysis. So now there's this location here, and we can add a space, I guess the Oval Office. And you can include information in here. You can indicate which location it's in, what types of material, what type of storage it is, what sensitivity the materials are, square footage, square meters, depending on what unit we're using. And important thing to note is when you do X out of here, it does save. I know it feels wrong, but it is saving. This is pretty easy to drag. So if you happen to have put the room into the wrong space, you can just drag it to the other one. And another thing to note before I get too deep into this, if you are interested in using the integrated pest management portion of the software, it's important to note this now, that these spaces have to be a space, like an enclosed space that has a square footage or a square meter size. And the reason that we do that is we use something called the Pest Occurrence Index. It was a paper published in 2019 by Christian Bars and Jane Henderson that basically pointed out the fact that there's a lot of fallacy in the way we present integrated pest management data. So for example, if you put out more pest monitors and you collect more pests, it doesn't necessarily mean you have more pests. It means that you're doing more monitoring. And the same thing goes if you have a really small space and you collect a lot of pests. That's a bigger deal than if you collect the same amount of pests in a really large space. So in order to do that kind of analysis, we do have to put the square footage in for all of our spaces. And this will make sense because when I jump into IPM, you'll see that this hierarchy is exactly mirrored. So it is the way we've intended the hierarchy to set up is that these are spaces and these are buildings. Just really important to do. You can also organize, some people find if you have a lot of spaces, you can put like first floor at the beginning so that will go in order of like what floors you are, because it does do it in numerical and alphabetical order, but that's the biggest thing we want to highlight there. Is there anything else, Claire, that I missed?
Nope. So do you know offhand who the weather data comes from?
Weather stack.
There you go.
And also, just so you know, you can put multiple sensors in the same space, and you can name the sensors based on like where they're located. So like if you had multiple sensors in our office, you could name one like near the window or something so that you can find them that way. Okay. So that's hierarchy. Now we'll jump into the levels. So this is where we put our environmental parameters. And you'll notice here that both of these spaces are listed under this default level. If you click it here, we'll open it up and you can edit this. It just shows that you have a target of 70 between 68 and 72 Fahrenheit. Like I said, we can change to Celsius too. This fluctuation is the maximum fluctuation in 24 hours. That's the same for the relative humidity, maximum fluctuation of 10%. We do allow you to import your own light data, but our sensors do have light sensors as well on them. So you can create targets for where you want your light to be and how many hours of light you want to be under. So you can edit this default level and you can also create others. So if you click this plus button down here, it will show you the, some starting points you can start with, unless you can, if you find one that's close to one that you already have, or if you've never done environmental parameters, you can start with one of these. I usually suggest to start with sustainable control. You can name it. So, and I do this for everybody. I indicate whether this is a seasonal set point. I do encourage people to consider thinking seasonally about their spaces. When we heat over the winter, it's going to dry out your space a lot more. I mean, it also depends on where you are in the world, obviously, depending on what your climate is. But you can create as many of these levels as you want. And so you can change these, you can exit out here. And like I said, it's pretty easy to just drag, and at any time, if you're moving into the winter parameters, you can drag your Oval Office into the winter parameters. Anything else, Claire?
Not so far. I'm doing a good job answering some questions in the chat, but we can circle back to them sort of maybe at a break. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when we set up the levels, they really make the most sense when we jump into the analysis. So this is the analysis. This green band on the screen is what we have set up as our set point. So it's between 68 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. This is obviously the data, the temperature from our office. Looks like it got pretty hot recently. These things over here on the right are key performance indicators. It's something that we've borrowed from the business world to give you a quick snapshot at how well your space is performing compared to the set points that we've made, like the levels that we've made and the time that we're examining. So if you scroll over all of them, they'll explain what they are. But for example, this is the temperature. It says that our space was within the parameters 50% of the time. And you can kind of see it does jump out quite a bit. But just to be aware, this is a daily aggregation. So this is literally one data point per day, the average. So we can change the aggregation down to 15 minutes, which you will see then has a lot more of those bumps that you might be typically used to seeing. And it definitely did get pretty warm there. All right, so if we are looking at daily and above, this is a really nice visual. This shows you the maximum fluctuation in 24 hours. So each one of these bar graphs represents a day, and this is the greatest fluctuation that happened that day. And then this green line is what we've set as our level where we want to stay under. And just so you're clear, I didn't necessarily go over all of them. You can scroll over them. They say what they are. This is like relative humidity. This is, the fluctuations. This is for light levels. We have some mold risk indicators in here. If they might be similar to what you've seen in eClimate Notebook. The time-weighted preservation index, we've represented that in a little bit of a different way. And the Conserv score, this is an uncontrolled environment in Alabama, just so you know. And we have some really great knowledge base articles on our website that will go into more into depth about how we arrive at some of these preservation analytics if you're curious. So we can send that over to you in our follow-up email. So let's see. If we are looking at the data an hourly or above, we can bring in local weather data. We just don't have 15-minute aggregation of the data. We just don't have that kind of resolution. But it is kind of nice to be able to see that. If we are looking, I just learned this. If we're looking at weekly or daily, we can look at the weekends. So some people like to know, when your museum is open and there's more people opening the door and it's busier, if that is impacting your environment at all. So you can kind of monitor these with these gray bands on the screen. This min-max band shows you the variation in the temperature. So if you do have daily average, it does show you like the greatest fluctuation that day. Let's see. Let's take a look at the RH.
I have a quick question, actually, Melissa.
Yeah, sure.
Can you set it so there are transitions between seasonal profiles to like sort of shift from one to another, or do you have to manually switch them?
That's a really great question. And we should probably take that down as a piece of feedback, because we cannot right now. No, that's not a possibility, but it's not an impossible thing to do. And something that I really would love to do for like the software to recognize when seasonally there's like a lot of changes. We're in like the shoulder part of the year, to like suggest that maybe you switch to your winter parameters. That's a great idea. I'd love for us to be able to do that. But right now you do just have to manually switch it. And
this is sort of a great point. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but the people who are, on our software team who are making the software can build anything they want, but we get a lot of our direction from users. So if you have a question, hey, could it do this? If you have an idea, I would love if it could do this. We're very open, and that's how we do a lot of our improvements and changes to the software, is by direct feedback from users. So if you have sort of any, I don't want to promise and say the sky's the limit, but if you've got any suggestions or thoughts, we'll show you where you can get those to us. And we're super receptive and open to all of that. So, great ideas all.
Literally everything that I'm showing you, all of these features were direct feedback that we heard from collections professionals. So ahead of time, thank you for everyone that's already contributed their feedback, because we wouldn't be here without that. So yes, definitely share your ideas. So just a couple of other things in the analytics before I jump on. Let's say we're looking at the data, we're looking at relative humidity, and we notice something that seems awry, or we're like, we might have a question about it for our facilities. Like there's this really big spike in RH this day. You can actually right-click right on the data and you can annotate, you can add an observation. So maybe you found out that big spike in relative humidity had to do with the fact that it was a rainy day. You were able to figure that out. You can add an image if you want. You can create a start and end time that extends beyond that instantaneous moment. And when you X out, that will be added to your observations. It doesn't always show up immediately. Let's see. So if we go to observe, it will show here that we had a rainy day. But if we go back to analysis, we do have this observation timeline down here. And so any kind of observations that we create will show up in this timeline. So if I am curious, what was that observation I made that day? It was rainy. We had an HVAC shutdown on this day. There was a leak in one of the spaces that day. So that's a really cool feature. I love the observation tool. Another thing that's kind of cool, because you can invite anyone from your team into here, we're hoping that you'll invite people from your facilities, people that are, doing the building management. And maybe you do have a question about what's happening here. So you can click, I'm going to click and drag and then release. You can zoom in on some of the data, and maybe you're questioning what this is. You can share this graph this way, and then you just copy that link and just write it in an email to someone in your facilities. If they're a member of Conserv, like they already have an account, when they click that, it will open them up into the software to this exact view. They can leave this view, they're in the software, they can start using it, but at least it will be a good way to facilitate like specific questions that you have about the data. So just some other things. We are looking at a single reading, but you can compare readings if you want to look at relative humidity and temperature at the same time. You can compare sensors if you want to. I mean, I only have one sensor in here, so I can't pull up multiple ones, but if you did want to have, if you had other sensors, you could pull them up at the same time to look at them, and then you could choose which reading that you want to see. You can generate reports in here. So the report will be whatever data you have on the screen. So if you do want to create a report for multiple spaces, just have them set up as compared sensors. And then you create a report right here. It will include a data summary, a graph, and any kind of observations that you've added during that time. And it will create this nice little report that you can then download as a PDF. And you can always export your CSV file of your data if you need to. So that's the analysis. Let me jump into observe. So this is honestly probably one of my favorite features in the software. We call this like the human sensor. It's the way to record all of that data that our data loggers aren't recording. So we have some examples that we already put in here. So say you're walking into a space, so you can add an observation here. If you can create an observation for the entire location, so like the whole building, you can create an observation for just a space. And so you can indicate which space you're talking about. So the Oval Office, maybe I noticed that there was a leak, heaven forbid. And the start and the end time, and you can add an image if you have an image of the leak. In here, that does not look like the Oval Office, but you can add that information. You can kind of consider it like an incident report, so you can record all that data here. And a really neat thing is you can actually record that data from your mobile app. So we do have a mobile app. If you go to the App Store and search for Conserv.io, no E at the end, just to be clear, there is the ability to add observations directly from your phone. So if you're walking around the galleries and you notice something amiss, you can record that here. You can get kind of crazy with these observations. I do think it's a really good idea to put down things that are going to be good to your future self. So if you hear from facilities that they're going to be shutting down the chillers from this period to this period, you should put that right into the software right away when you get that email. I know from personal experience, when I was doing environmental monitoring in graduate school, I would be looking at the data, something would seem amiss. And then in the back of my head, I'd remember that there was an email somewhere. So I'd have to go search for that email. It would have been so nice to have that information right here in this log of observations, so that when I'm looking at the data, I can tell right away what's going on. And because you can invite a lot of people into here, you can really encourage staff at your museum to contribute to these observations in a way that's really going to be meaningful and help you to contextualize your data. So it feels hot, it feels humid. We mopped the floors. We're in a conservation lab and we did a wet treatment of paper. Anything that's going to change the humidity could be really interesting things to record.
Quick question, Melissa.
Sure.
Can you view temperature and relative humidity in the same graph, same time?
You can view temperature and relative humidity at the same time in the same graph. Yep.
Great.
Okay. So that's observe. Quickly go into reports. So we do have the ability to create a performance report, which is really more of a higher view of all of your spaces. It doesn't have necessarily all the graphs, but it will have the key performance indicators. We also have the ability to generate facilities reports, the AAM format. We've heard from a lot of people that this can be kind of a frustrating report to fill out. There's a lot of qualitative information, and it just gets to a section where it asks for hard numbers. This report will spit out the numbers exactly the way you need to paste them into that report. So that we've heard that from some people that would be helpful. Alerts. So if you do have our sensors, they will be reporting data into the software every 10 minutes. So it behooves you to set up alerts. We've heard these can be really helpful for people, making them aware of real emergencies in their spaces, in times when maybe they're not in the building, or maybe they're not in that part of the building. So you can set up as many alerts as you want. And I will emphasize, this is really only if you have our sensors coming in, because there's no way we could alert you from historic data. But I set this up for everybody's accounts from our customers, that if the data goes it goes below 20% RH or above 80% RH, that might be something that you might want to be texted about. You might want to receive a text about or an email. We're working on a way to do notifications, push notifications through our mobile app too, so you could get a message like right away if there's an issue. Import. So we do allow you to bring in your own data here. So we have the ability to import hobo files, PEM2 files, CSV files. Pretty much any data logger should export a file as a CSV file. So you can bring all of this into your software. And like I said, there's just no limits on how much data we put in here. I did see that somebody asked about the essentials. What's the difference between the free version and the essentials?
Yep.
One of the features in the essentials for the import tool is that instead of importing one data set at a time, we allow you to do large imports of data sets. I think like at least 10 or so.
20, 20 or so in a batch.
So you can just drag everything in there. Yeah.
So if you have a fleet of 100 other data loggers that you're importing, you can either import 100 files, or you can do it in these sort of larger batches. That was something that we, from larger institutions, something that they were interested in. And so that's currently one of our features in our paid software. We are continuing to build out. We just introduced the paid version like a few weeks ago. So there will be more and more features in the paid software. So there's this one right now, and then something in IPM, which we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah. And just so you're clear, everything that I'm showing you right now is part of the free version. So there's nothing that I'm showing you that you can't do. Yeah. And that's the reason why a lot of software companies offer freemium versions of their software, just to give people like a really good baseline tool to work. But our hope is that, you'll start to see some of the benefits of the other tools that we're building into the software, that you will consider like paying for the premium version, the essentials version, as we start to build out more features. So that's kind of how we work as a business, if that makes a little sense. Let's see. So I've shown you import alerts, the events. So this will just show any kind of notifications that you get if you have an alert. But let's jump into IPM now. Can we just come back to a couple questions on environmental data first? So let's see, someone has asked, is it possible to change which y-axis has the temperature and which has the RH? And is it possible to change the intervals on the y-axis? I do know that it is, the y-axis can be adjusted. You can set a custom range. So if you want to look at a certain range, there's also a sort of like auto range feature that will like set it, give you a suggestion of a good range on the y-axis. Let's see, this is one of the questions, if you can see temperature and relative humidity at the same time. So temperature is over here, relative. I don't know if we can choose which side that's on. I think it just picks it for you, but you can choose your scale. Mm-hmm. And it has a scale for RH and for temperature. And you can auto scale either or both. Yeah. Great question. Is there any questions with the analysis before I jump into IPM? Let's see. Can we calculate AH and DPT and graph them on the software? I don't know that I'm familiar with those. Dewpoint? Dewpoint, probably. We do have Dewpoint. I don't know what AH is. Yeah. I'll ask for some clarification. Okay. I'm a big fan of Dewpoint, looking at Dewpoint temperature, because it really tells you, is that the absolute? Absolute. There you go. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, because it really just tells you where moisture is increasing in certain your spaces, since it isn't it is an independent variable. So I encourage everybody to look at Dewpoint, if possible, just to compare your spaces, because if one space has a higher Dewpoint at a certain time than others, like you have to kind of figure out where that moisture is coming from. So I won't nerd out too much about Dewpoint right now, but like it is something that I really like to talk about. Okay. IPM. So just as a reminder, this hierarchy is exactly the same as the one that we set up in the sensor view. So if we add any more spaces in here, it will also be reflected in the sensor view. But if you are setting up IPM program, there is a good chance there's going to be some more spaces you need to add in here that you're not necessarily monitoring for the environment, such as like office areas, kitchenettes, that sort of thing, things where there might be food and there might be a higher risk of pests. So you can add more spaces in here. And just as I mentioned before, it's absolutely crucial that you put your square footage into these spaces. I'm just gonna give the White House the square footage, just so we can look at the analysis, but to actually go around and figure out what that square footage is. So this is where you set up your locations for your pest monitors. So you can see I've already put one in here. I've named it number 1. It's under the table in the southwest corner. I think I even added a nice little picture of it as well. I'm going to add one more.
The pictures are really nice because if you have, if you haven't checked them in a while, if it's good to have a visual of where they are, and if you have any sort of helpers going to help you find them, having a visual of like where they are, because they're often tucked away in sort of hidey holes and corners. So it's a really nice way to be able to, like give a little bit more information about where something's located.
Yeah, and also when you replace it, to put it back in the same place from like a statistical standpoint, we do kind of typically want to be monitoring in the same exact locations. Okay, and I realized I got to put a square footage for here too, because that's where I put my pest monitors. So you would really only need to spend a lot of time in here once getting these all set up where your pest monitor locations are. If you've never done an IPM program, just so you are aware, this number that we assigned it should probably also be written on the actual pest monitor itself too, so that when you collect it and you're doing analysis, you know which one you're referring to. And also we do require you to indicate where it's located. Oh, and I didn't specify, you can change the pest monitor type. I have it as a sticky pest monitor. We also have pheromone pest monitor. And if you have something else, you can actually type it in right here if there's another type of pest monitor.
Yeah, so if you have snap traps for mice or something, you can type in. It was funny, someone asked us about this and I had no inclination that you could just type in to a drop-down box and it would come up. So our CTO was like, of course you can type in. So you can type in whatever else you need, or if you have different kinds of pheromone traps, you can specify those as well.
All right, so this will also tell you the last time you've checked it in the software. It says an hour ago because Claire and I were in here muddling a little bit before. And it also will tell you the last time you've replaced it. So if you do replace your pest monitors, you do just have to tell the software that you've replaced it. And so it will keep track of that for you. All right, so the next thing we need to do, so say you've put your pest monitors out for a couple months and you want to do observations. It's a bit of a two-step process. So first you need to record an observation, and then you need to assign an identification to that observation. So the way we do that is this way. So I'll go in here, I'll click add an observation. I'll indicate that it is this pest monitor. Number 2, I grabbed it from our headquarters on this date. I might even have some little notes if there's like some little small insect that I probably won't see in the picture, but maybe I saw it in person. And then you can add a picture. And I apologize if anybody doesn't like bugs, but this is kind of part of the territory. Avert your eyes. So I've added that observation. And another thing to note is you can create these observations on the go from the mobile app too. So if it's the time of the month where you're going around and collecting IPM data, you can just take your phone around, take a picture, add an observation, take a picture, add an observation. And then when you have time to sit down in the software on the web, on your web browser, you can start the identification process. So this is the ID process. You can zoom in. I apologize, it's not the best picture. So hopefully you still have the pest monitor to do ID on some of these smaller things. But this is generally how it works. We have this database here. So if you're ready to make an identification, you click add a pest. And this is a database that was put together by the Museum Pests Working Group here in the US. And it is a comprehensive list of insects and vertebrates that are considered pests to our collections. It is not comprehensive of every insect that you're going to find on your pest monitors. So really, we're just kind of highlighting the ones that are really a risk to us. So let's say I know this is a beetle, and I can type in beetle, and The search is pretty good. You can actually misspell and it still comes up. So, but also I know that it's an adult, so I can select a filter life cycle stage. So I basically am looking at all of the adult beetles in the database. And so you can scroll through here. If there's an arrow, it means there's multiple pictures of the same insect. And, you know, hopefully the insect that you're looking at isn't in this list. But if it is, this is how you would select it. You'd click here. You X out, it will show here. You can change the quantity of how many you've seen, and you can continue to add other pests this way. You can also leave comments for yourself, or if, say, you have someone that's doing the ID for you and they're unsure about one of the identifications, they can leave a comment. So when Claire sits down and looks at this again later,
Yeah.
she can confirm what's that bee-like thing. I think it's a wasp. So then when you're done with this ID, you can hit next, and then the other one will show up. So this is an example. So spiders, I'm sorry if you don't like spiders. This is an example of an insect that's not going to be in this database. And spiders are, in fact, actually not a bad thing to have around. They do eat the pests that we don't like. I guess in large quantities, we want to know about them because they can create a food source for other insects that we don't like. But for example, if I search spider, it's, you know, a black widow. Like, I don't think we'd want to identify that. So this is an example of something that we have in the Essentials version, was the ability to create new insects to the database, or pests or whatever that you want to keep track of. So you would just be able to add a new entry for spider. We also have the ability to clean up the existing database if you think there are some things in here that you'll never see. We got some really great feedback. Oh my gosh, we're running out of time. We got some really great feedback that, you just want to focus on the 10 worst insects. That's really where you want to put your attention. So you might be able to deselect some of these. So that's the identify. So if you don't have the Essentials version, we did build in a little bit of a workaround, excuse me, where you can just keep track of whether it's an unknown pest or an unknown incidental. An unknown pest meaning you know it's going to harm your collection, and an unknown incidental means it just happens to be in your collection. So you can do that, and you can change the quantity. So when you finish, you can always go back into Observe and edit any of these. So you can click in here and edit if you need to. You can also create general observations for things that you find in locations that aren't on a pest monitor. So if somebody finds a dead carpet beetle on a windowsill, you would just change the scope to a space. You would name the space that you saw it, what date, and maybe you can add a picture so that, instead of people bringing dead insects to your desk to identify, you can come in here now and you're like, oh, somebody identified something in this space. Let me jump into the ID and I will identify it, or hopefully I can identify it with that picture. And then I won't go too deep into the analysis. It's not going to be super interesting to look at right now with only one data entry, but we do the pest occurrence by space, by time. This is your overall pest count by time. I did put a little slide in here just to show you, like, kind of somebody's filled out what it would look like by all of your spaces. And this is what, by time, your overall pest count. Gosh, we're running out of time. I'm so sorry. So the other things that I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of, if you go to your profile, if you go into your settings, that's where you can change your unit of measurement. You can also go in here. This is where you invite your team. Oh, right here. So you can invite as many people as you want. You just enter their email address. We have some resources in here. We're going to send you a link to our knowledge base. If you're using the software and every time you have like a question or a product idea, you can just open up this little bot and talk to us. Like, as Claire said, we love product suggestions. It really helps us. So I went through all the software. Now is just some time to open up the questions. And if we do go a little beyond, I'm happy to stay on a little bit longer if anybody has any lingering questions, but I also understand. Oh, we got to do the drawing. Let's do the drawing real quick.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's see. Drum roll. In the meantime, actually, so speaking of sensors, we've had a lot of questions, like product questions about the sensors and gateways. So if you could speak maybe quickly, Melissa, about that.
Yeah.
Well, I get the drawing going.
Yeah, I think somebody asked if we use Wi-Fi. Actually, we don't use Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. It's a new type of wireless sensing technology called LoRaWAN, which stands for Long Range Wide Area Network. And it's really, really well suited for this application because it's low frequency. It can get through thick walls. We've had some of these gateways set up to serve an entire building that takes up a whole city block that's 5 stories tall, and we had coverage for that whole building. And also another advantage of the LoRaWAN as opposed to Wi-Fi is it can only send a small little packet of data at a time, which is actually fine for our application because we're only sending like 2 data points every 10 minutes. As opposed to trying to stream Netflix on our phone. So the range is really good. And then it also doesn't drain batteries. So our sensors last between 4 or 5 years on one single battery. And as opposed to Wi-Fi sensors, I worked at a museum where I had to every week go and charge all of our wireless sensors. So there is an advantage of having the wireless sensors and getting real-time data with some of these Wi-Fi technologies, but you add another hassle of having to make sure everything's charged and everything's working. And if your Wi-Fi sometimes goes down, it can be a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So,
can you also speak briefly about pricing for the sensors and gateways and the software, the paid software?
Well, honestly, we really like to spend some time talking to you a little bit about that because I think if you are really interested in learning about our software, spend some time, 30 minutes with me, I'll give you a demo. Our pricing is a bit different from what you've seen on the rest of the market. It is a subscription, and there's a lot of reasons that we do that. It's $220 per sensor per year. And we do that so that we can include maintenance as part of that. So we do recalibration for you. We send you brand new sensors every 3 years. We have service. So Claire and I are on the team for customer support. And it also allows us to continually invest in the software. So your subscription price stays the same, but our software continues to improve. And also it's not a one size fits all situation. Like you can have some of our sensors giving you real-time data in your account, and you can also import some other sensors as well. So, you can prioritize certain areas where you might want to get real-time data.
Let's see. And someone asked about the range for the gateway. So it's hard to tell because it depends on your building materials. But it's about, I think the range, the sort of base range is about 3,000 feet. Most places, like most buildings can have one gateway sort of in a given sort of building. If you are on, for example, university campus and have buildings sort of scattered around, or if you have offsite storage that's 5 miles down the road, you'd need separate gateways for those buildings. But the range is much, much longer than Bluetooth especially, but Wi-Fi also.
And one thing to note about the gateway that I didn't tell you is that it has its own SIM card. So you don't have to connect, you can, but you don't have to connect to your network at your institution, which IT department tends to like because we basically are creating our own network. It's called air-gapped. So it will send data to the cloud via cell service that you don't have to pay. It's included in the subscription cost as well. So if you have cell service and a place to plug in your gateway, then we are good to start getting live data.
Can you talk about data safety and security?
Data safety and security. We have a really great IT frequently asked questions article that I can send you that goes a little bit more into the specifics. But we do host all of our data on AWS, Amazon Web Services. And I think it's like 3 different locations. I'm not privy to all of the specifics of the specific security questions, but please reach out to us if you have questions about security. We can connect you with Nathan, one of our co-founders who worked in IT for like 10 years or so. So he can definitely talk to you. He's very aware of some of the concerns that different IT departments can have. So he's thought carefully about where to store the data and security issues.
Another question we have is the wireless system compatible with all devices? So the nice thing about LoRaWAN is that it is an open source technology. So if there are other LoRaWAN sensors that are on the market, we can incorporate those into your system and they can also talk to the gateway. So if someone decides to make a dust monitor or a pollutant monitor that works on LoRaWAN, we can incorporate that in addition to our sensors. And we have a few other things. Actually, we have external environmental sensors. So if you want hyper-specific weather data, like just on the outside of your building, we have leak detection sensors. So we're sort of expanding our portfolio a bit, but that's one of the nice things about LoRaWAN in this sort of world of the Internet of Things. It's a ripe place for people to make things, and we can sort of incorporate them in our system.
Yeah. Do you have a winner, Claire? Because it's 11.
I do, yes. Our winner is Nicole Festa from the New York Public Library.
If you're on the call, Nicole, can you respond in the chat and let us know that you're here? If not, we will pick the next winner.
Yes.
Nicole Festa?
I think she said, it says that she's here. Let's see. I've allowed Nicole to talk.
Oh.
Let's see. Are you here?
Muted. Hi. Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. This is so exciting.
Okay,
Great.
I'm
Congratulations.
very much looking forward to testing this out because at present the library, New York Public Library uses, the hobo onset. So this could be a great test run for us. So thank you.
Great. Well,
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for joining us today. Melissa and I can certainly stick around to ask questions, but we know that everyone has a lot on their plate. So if you have to drop out, please feel free. We will be sending a follow-up email. A lot of people have asked about instructions for importing other data, and instructions for that will be included. We have a lot of different resources on our website that can help walk you through, if you have hobo, if you have CSV files, all different things. Let's see, I'm trying to see again, if you have specific questions about like pricing, quotes, more information about the sensors, I will have in that email a link to contact me and sort of reach out so we can get you started. We wanted to focus this webinar on the software and the free software, but we're of course happy to talk to you about our sensors as well. Let's see, other questions. Let's see. Does a square feet have to be approximate? And is it better to put in the square footage for the gallery or collection space on its own or the entire floor if those spaces happen to be on the same floor? And this is especially for the IPM. So Melissa, I know that several people asked us to send them the sort of the POI article, but if you could talk a little bit about the square footage and like how that works, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really tricky question and something that we deal with a lot with organizations that have a lot of temporary exhibits where they build new walls and the spaces change. You can create a space for that exhibit. I don't know, I'm trying to think out loud. I
think it might depend on your specific sort of case. And also if you are, if you've got a biggish space that's not really divided, maybe that's one space as opposed to separate little spaces, as opposed to, your break room in your office building might, be a self-contained small space. It's not like you have to have it in there for the software to work. You need to have it in there for the analytics to sort of work correctly, I guess. Yeah. You could just skip it and not worry about it, but then you won't have that information.
Yeah. Well, actually, what I might suggest is if you have like a big gallery space that sometimes breaks into smaller spaces, I would make that gallery space like a more permanent space, like something that has a clear square footage. And then if you have multiple sensors in that space, you can name them depending on where they are in that space. And same with like the IPM monitors, you can name them depending on where they are in the space as well.
Yeah, we've had a couple questions about floor plans. I mentioned that that's something that we have sort of, like on the docket to work on. But one of the things, could you talk a little bit about our product board, Melissa?
Yeah, so one thing that we use to organize all of the ideas that we have, because all of you all have amazing ideas and there's so much that we want to accomplish within the software, is this website called Product Board. When you go, I'm still sharing my screen, right? You can create product suggestions in here. It will go right into our product board. And it's basically the way that our team will prioritize things that we build out. So even if it seems like super obvious and you think that a lot of other people have asked for it, still include it because we will look at that list and we will prioritize based on how many times people ask us to do something. I mean, there's other ways that we prioritize things as well, but we do listen really closely to the feedback that we get. And one piece of feedback that we do get a lot is floor plans, and something that I would really, really love to see us implement in the near future. I know it's on our horizon. I just don't know exactly when we're going to get that built.
Let's see. Someone asked about how many locations can you pair at once? I think this is for environmental sensors.
How many locations can you what?
Compare at once.
Oh.
So you can compare, is it that you can compare sensors? Is that right?
Yeah, I think there is a limit. I think it's like 20. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd have to like check.
Yeah, we can check.
Yeah, I don't have that many sensors in here to do that right now, but yeah. It gets to a point where it's just like way too muddled to see everything, and like we just run out of colors to visualize.
Yeah, that too. Light yellow, dark yellow, dots, exactly. Let's see. I saw a gap in the data while in Analyze. What caused that, if not power or connectivity?
The gap in the data, yes. So that had to do with the fact that our gateway was unplugged for a period of time, and that the gateway itself has a 4-hour battery, so it can extend through short power outages, but we are actively working on a feature where our sensors will collect data independently, and then we'll be able to export that data off via Bluetooth. So there will, in the near future, be no gaps in our data.
And there's also, we're talking about, so the sensors, will have their own sort of memory to hold like a year's worth of data or something that Melissa was talking about, but also we're working on sort of power backup options for the gateway. The gateway gets plugged into the wall. So whether that's like, if I'm in Louisiana, so we just had a big hurricane, so this is top of mind for me. If you know that something is coming, you can have this sort of external secondary power support. You can move it to a place in your building that has backup power, for example. So we're sort of aware of this. We're personally, like very attuned to this. So we're working on it. It's something that we hope to roll out in the near future. Let's see. Floor plans. Oh, for what countries is the cell service currently included? I guess we could also talk about where you can use our sensors also.
Yeah, currently we are only selling our sensors in the US, Canada, UK, and the EU. So we have cell service in all of those countries.
Yeah.
Locations, regions. The EU is in the country.
Yeah. And the cell service is, it's not like you have to buy an extra data plan. It's already included with sort of in the package with the sensors and the gateway. Let's see. Will you be able to share a recording of the session with staff who cannot attend? Could we also talk about inviting your colleagues? I don't know if we
we did.
touched on. Oh, we did. Okay, super.
Yeah.
Yes, we're planning on sharing the recording of the session. We're also, someone earlier asked about if there are tutorials. We're actively working on some of the tutorials. When you just start in the software, there are some videos, but some of them don't necessarily look like the current interface that we have. The guts of it is sort of the same, but we've been sort of improving it since we made those videos. So we're actively working on, it's like on our to-do list, like this week, last week, recording more videos especially for a lot of our new features. So we're sort of working on a at your own pace kind of walkthrough with videos of the software features. And
it's kind of a testament to how quickly we are working through the software. We only released IPM in April. We only started working on it in earnest in January. We have a lot of really lofty plans for other things that we might want to include in the software, emergency management planning. The world is our oyster in terms of like what we can build out. Our vision is to have this be a one-stop shop for all of your preventive conservation needs.
Yeah. So someone asked about, is pest management free? So everything in the software that we showed today is free. The two features that we showed with the custom pest list and the sort of bulk import with data, those are the things that are currently in our essentials sort of paid version of the software. We will be building more features into that, but again, you can use your sensors that you already have and import the data. There's no licensing. You can have unlimited users. So it's not like, free for only 3 people. It's as many people as you want to add in. And all the IPM features, save the custom pest list, all of that is free. So again, everything we saw today is part of the free software.
But we would love for you to be a paying customer.
Of course, yes. Yeah. So that's, the idea is that we want to provide this, because people need better tools, and we recognize that there's not really something like this on the market, and we want everyone to have access to it. But of course, free software is not how we make our money, right? So if you're interested in sensors, if you're interested, especially as we add more and more features to paid software, it's sort of the pricing is akin to a subscription to eClimate Notebook. So it's sort of the same kind of order of magnitude, but again, sort of unlimited users and data as well. Let's see. Other questions? We answered this one. Yeah, so if you have more detailed questions about your pricing at your location, like how many gateways you'd need, how it sort of works, we'd be happy to set up a meeting with either me or Melissa to sort of go through that with you individually, because it does, because it's a per sensor thing, it just sort of, it sort of varies based on sort of where you are and what you have going. So let's see, I'm scrolling through these other questions. A gap in connectivity. Yeah, we talked about floor plans.
Someone asked to look at the sensor. This is what it looks like.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't have one at home, but my example is it's about the size of my charging block from my.
This is the real one.
There's the real one. Melissa has the real one.
Pretty slick.
And they also, from having done this at an institution, we do have paintable covers. So if you are changing out your special exhibition space and want to change it, to paint it out to match your wall, that's very doable with these sensors. Unoffensive on the wall, which everyone loves. And also you can sort of change them, which is nice. Let's see. Best way, okay, so can you talk a little bit more about the square footage? So someone asked, is there a best way to calculate square footage if there are multiple pest traps in one large room? So the way that it works with the POI, Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it basically normalizes the data knowing how many traps you have in what square footage. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if you have multiples, you would just put the square footage for this space, and then you have multiple sensors within that space.
Yeah. So someone asked if your space is bigger than 3,000 square feet, do you need multiple gateways? So the 3,000 sort of number is like a linear, essentially. So we have one of our customers has a museum that's basically a city block, and they have their gateway in the basement of the conservation lab on sort of like one corner, and then the sensors in their special exhibition space sort of diagonally through up 3 or 4 floors through concrete and steel and glass construction, sort of contemporary building, and the signal is crystal clear. So the range on them is quite long. We can talk to you more specifically about spaces if you have, sort of difficult spaces that you're trying to work with. It's sort of easier to answer on a case by case.
And also you don't have to just have one gateway too. You don't, you can have multiple gateways. You can set up a network. We have some customers that have museums across the street from each other, and they benefit from having 2 gateways. Their sensors are sending data to all of the Conserv gateways. So you're essentially creating your own network. And the gateways are a one-time cost, and we give you a free gateway if you have 10 sensors. We really just want to make sure you get set up so that you have good range for your whole building, and you're just regularly getting data every 10 minutes.
Yeah, someone asked if we can, if these go into cases or if they can be just for the room environment, and they can do both. We're also working on remote probes. So if you imagine you have your deck, instead of having the whole, sort of 3-inch square sensor, you can have a little sensor that sort of sticks out, and the rest of it maybe is under the deck. This is great, especially for condition cases, for exhibitions and that sort of thing. And the nice thing about the sort of cloud software also is that you can send your Conserv monitor, with an exhibition, or, if you're loaning something, or if you have them at your institution, you can selectively, we're sort of working on perfecting this, but you can selectively share data. So you can show your lenders, the case where their object is, but not the rest of your sensors in the museum. Because we know that that's something that happens, especially with traveling exhibitions. So yeah, that's definitely possible. They can go in cases in the room, and you can reflect that in your hierarchy also. It's easy to do.
I have to run. I have another meeting.
I'll just say, yeah. So the rest of these questions, I'll try to reach out to people individually. But if you have specific questions about your particular location and your institution, please do feel free. We'll send a link so you can reach out to us, and you'll have my email address. We are here to help you, whether that's get the free software working with your sensors you already have, get more information about our sensors, whatever you need. We're here to help. So thank you again for your time today, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.